Alright, we're here checking out some videos on YouTube with Peter Brown. And what do you think, Brown, about the polyglots?
Well, there's a lot of them. A lot of them don't make very many videos. Some of them, I was just watching a video by Finnish Practice, and I kind of like him because he really has his feet on the ground. He's not out there making any pretensions.
Yeah.
He has huge ambitions to learn a lot of languages, but he doesn't have any. I don't see him having any false pretensions, and he's quite realistic, I think, about what he's actually accomplished. And I don't know. I no longer find most of these guys all that interesting, and I don't find them making a lot of great resources. I mean, there's a lot of great resources for learning languages out there on YouTube, but most of them are not being made by this community. I mean, you can find all kinds of great stuff to learn just about any of the major languages. I mean, if you want to study Japanese, you can study Japanese for almost all the major European languages, which is what I've been doing, with Japanese. I mean, we can study, that's triangulation. I've been studying Japanese via Italian and Portuguese and whatnot, but that's not being produced by people in this community. And some of these guys, you can't deny the talent of some of these guys. You can't deny the talent of Richard Simcott, for instance, but he doesn't make a lot of videos. And most of them don't teach languages. Kaufman talks a lot about learning languages and usually says the same thing over and over again, but he doesn't actually teach languages on his videos. So I no longer find much value in.
So there's no really like a correct way to learn it. Like it's just what's that? Listening to people's facts or.
Well, I think the best way is just to be plunged into it and have, well, two things. You should have good resources, have some idea of what you're doing, and be plunged into it. Or
not to set goals too high too.
Not
right?
to set your goals too high, like Finnish Practice was saying. You have to be realistic about what you can accomplish. You have to be realistic about your limitations. But there's methods out there. I was listening to a video by what's the guy's name? Cogton. We're talking about the Dartmouth method, which would be good if you can actually go to Dartmouth, but if you would actually have to learn to use the technique in situ, or use this method in situ, where they would actually train you at Dartmouth University. So there's limitations to the methods. They might be extremely good methods, but they're not necessarily available, and they might, maybe you could go to spend the summer at Dartmouth, but maybe you couldn't, maybe you can't. In my case, I'm usually teaching during the summer, so that's out. So I think the best materials for learning languages on YouTube are not coming from this community. They're coming from other sources, people that know the language extremely well and teach it on YouTube, but they're not part of what's generally considered to be the linguaphile community.
So you basically don't have to be like a scholar, or have credentials on the.
Oh, to learn a language, I think the basic thing if that's the issue you're getting at, to learn a language, the basic thing is to have the drive and be willing to look for resources that are going to work. And if you can afford it, do go to. There's colleges like Middlebury, which is known for its language program. I just mentioned Dartmouth. I think Georgetown University has some very good language programs. You should, if you're at college age, you should think about majoring in the language, but major in something else as well, because like in Spanish, it's an overly congested market. You have to check that out if you're actually going to have a job.
Yeah, something that you could use it, in everyday
language. If you combine something else, it doesn't have to be international business. But if you can find something you can combine the language with and have a double major, that would be one way of doing it. Or just take summer classes, night classes. Some of these guys scorn learning in the classroom, but I've always gotten something out of, in recent years, taking informal Russian classes at the University, informal Arabic. I did quite a bit of Arabic. I actually, because I'm a professor, I got to sit in several semesters of Chinese at this university. Didn't have to pay a cent. I got to participate all the time. Of course, not everybody can do that, but find some way. Take some classes if you can, or there's a lot of classes on YouTube. That, I mean, you're not going to have feedback with the instructor, but there's certainly some good lessons. And I think, or through Skype, and I know there's some online courses and stuff out there as well. That's another thing with the linguaphiles is they all say you should be autodidactic, meaning you should learn entirely on your own. I mean that's okay, but it's not going to give you. I don't think it's going to give you a full development. You should definitely find a teacher, a good teacher. Although you shouldn't limit yourself to what that person has to impart. Okay, so I mean there are some. It is inspirational to see some of the talent that are out there, like Loki obviously has superior phonological capabilities, and he's extremely good at picking up languages. I know. Well, I think I heard somewhere that he's actually an interpreter from Arabic to English or French or something. That's being an interpreter requires a high degree of mastery in the language that you're interpreting from and the language you're interpreting into.
Yeah.
And especially simultaneous.
Yeah, and fast.
Simultaneous translation, which is almost
kind of hard.
An art, almost like a magical act you're performing in that booth there. But recently, I think I haven't found too much inspiration in the linguaphile community. There's some interesting personalities. I think that's what I look for more, like Finnish practice, an interesting personality. And if you consider him part of this community, there's some eccentrics. You have to appreciate these guys for their eccentricity. Some of these guys get kind of old. Like I find, like Hoffman is just a constant repetition of himself in all his different. Even when he speaks in different languages, he's just basically saying the same thing. Lao Shu is always basically the same thing. His level ups are basically the same show every time. So I would say I'm disappointed. Maybe it's just I've overgrown these guys. Maybe there's a stage where it's kind of a source of information, but they no longer are. Yeah. I would say I've just outgrown them. Yeah. So any more questions?
Well,
about language learning or anything?
Really, like, and what do you have to say about people competing against each other? I've seen a lot of competition with like people saying
competition of language learning. Well, I don't see how it can really be competitive because we don't come from the same backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like you see a lot of Anglo people have trouble learning Spanish. They really do, because the morphosyntactic element of Spanish is actually very different from English. You just don't say things the same way. You don't arrange sentences the same way. The wording can be completely different, and that can be, for someone who's monolingual in English, that's never been exposed to Spanish as a child, learning Spanish can actually be quite difficult. So that person shouldn't be competing with someone who's quasi-native in Spanish, like most people in the Valley are either quasi or semi-native, if not native. So in a lot of situations you can't compete. It's you shouldn't be attempting to compete.
Yeah, it's just learn it as you go. Learn what you can learn, and it's available to you.
Exactly, and be realistic about what your capabilities are, what your background is, how much you actually know about the way languages work. And I do believe a knowledge of linguistics is always going to give you a much firmer hold on whatever language you're studying. So if you're in college, take some linguistics classes. That'll be good for you. I mean, I did. But yeah, the idea of competing, it's not, well, it is a sport. No, from learning language, this is a sport, but it's not, I'm not competing with anybody.
No.
Why would I want to compete with anybody? I just
Yeah,
doing
just
what I do.
your
It is a
interest.
sport. It's a sport for me. It's something that you know. If other people are watching the Super Bowl or they're watching the Dallas Cowboys, everybody here is
They're
it's like
choosing one
everybody I talk
side.
to is all enthusiastic about the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Well, I just can't get into that. But I think the languages I study serve the same function. You know, it's a functionality of language learning. Does it keep you stimulated? You know, like the Dallas Cowboys do for
Choosing one side.
a lot
Right.
of the population here. So
All right. Well, there you have it, YouTube viewers. Catch you next time here with Peter Brown. And here. All right. Thanks.
good.